The Big Mountain drafts a 32-team Super League.
Conference realignment and Super Leagues are always in the news, so we're back on the Big Mountain to have a little fun.
How you doing? I am JY, and this is my good friend Steve, and we are going to have fun on this episode. We are going to draft a 32-team Super League, going back and forth. We're going to have the Steve conference and the JY conference for this 32-team Super League. This was Steve's idea. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I prepped and I'm ready for my conference to take you down.
Yeah, and the big thing is this is just a fun exercise. You know, there's been a lot of headlines recently about different media entities trying to create a Super League. We don't think it's really going to happen anytime soon.
No,
we have some, but it just got us thinking, and we're let's do this. We wanted to make it as if this was going to be kind of a mini NFL. So we want to make it as close as possible. So we're going to have 32 teams. He's going to pick 16. I'm going to pick 16. We're going to alternate. And we will have, I think we're each going to have a list of some honorable mentions or, teams just outside of the bubble. But this is just a fun exercise to see, what kind of a 32 team league we can create.
And we'll throw it up at the very end. I'll throw up the 32-team Super League, the Steve Conference, and the JY Conference. And y'all can tell us who has the better conference. And you better say JY. No, but we did an off-screen coin flip.
Yes.
I won the coin flip. And so I'm going to go first. And I've looked at all kinds of things, Steve. I have drawn my own little United States map here so I can get a nice spread. I don't want just Eastern or Southern teams. I've looked at that realignment attractiveness score. Again, everybody that is on Twitter has probably seen that. I've looked at total TV viewership. I've looked at AAU. I've looked at whether their crowds are going up or down. I've looked at postseason appearances. I have put it all into my mix. And you know who I'm going to take first? It's probably everybody knows.
I want to hear. I think I know.
The Buckeyes.
Yeah, that's what
Ohio State University is the number one pick coming out of the gate, going to JY's JY Conference.
Yeah.
I got to name it something better than that.
Makes total sense. I mean, they're one of the most watched team. Get the best ratings. They've had great success, great revenue. They're just one of those big drivers for the Fox ratings, for the Big Ten revenue. And the state of Ohio, a lot of big markets there, good TV market. Just they have everything you want. Totally not surprised by that at all.
Yep.
And I figured either one of us, we probably would have went with that team. And then for me losing the coin toss, it was going to make it a little more difficult. Number two, I have like 5 teams I considered at number 2. And good reasons.
My 2 and 3 were close.
Okay.
I wouldn't say my next 4 were close. My 2 and 3 were close. So who do you got?
So for this one, I looked at a bunch of different factors: TV market, success, ratings, and all of that. And I might be a little bit behind the curve here, but I'm going to stick with basically the other program that has been as highly successful drawing the ratings, and I'm going to go with Alabama as my first pick in my Steve conference.
Okay. They were not in my next 2.
Well, that's what I said. I had about 4 or 5 teams that were I could have put any of them as 2.
All right. Well, then I'm excited because I'm getting my 1 and 2.
All right, let's go.
And my 2 is Michigan.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
So I'm taking the Wolverines. Apparently, I'm building the Big Ten here, Steve.
I think so.
Anyway, I got the Buckeyes and I got the Wolverines. Again, just look at revenues. Again, these top couple teams. I mean, they just got everything you want. It's they were number 3, at least what I saw for total TV, and I don't remember exactly how far back they were looking. But number 3, Ohio State was number 1. Both are AAUs. Postseason appearances, doing good. So I'm happy.
I like it.
Very happy.
Yep. And and with that lineup, with that roster of teams, that you can have that Michigan Ohio State battle every year, which is one of the bigger drivers. So totally understand that pick. Okay. So my next pick may surprise you as well, and it kind of surprised myself as I broke down the numbers. First pick, I went with like the biggest dynasty in the last decade or so, and now I'm going to go with a team that I think has been historically one of the biggest dynasties in college football. It's a national brand, just drives viewers all over the country in all those big markets.
I know what you're going to say.
I'm going with Notre Dame.
I knew that's what you were going to say. They were my number 3.
And I can't stand Notre Dame, so that kind of pains me, but it is what it is.
They were my number 3. And when you started talking about, I know exactly who you're talking about. And that's Notre Dame. I think they're right there. My 1, 2, 3 was OSU, Michigan, Notre Dame. I didn't have Alabama in my top 3.
All right.
So, anyway. All right. So number 4. I don't know if this will surprise you or not, but I have to get down into the wonderful state of Texas.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm taking Texas.
Yes, totally understandable. It's a huge pick. It's a massive market. The long-running joke was, is Texas back? Well, Texas is back.
Oh, yeah.
And the money they have down there, you got to be in that market if you're creating a Super League. So it does not surprise me whatsoever.
Yes, I'm very happy to be in that market.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go next then with the University of Georgia.
Okay.
That Atlanta market, you have the talent down there, the success that they've built, the investment in the program. Honestly, they could be the next Alabama. We might be seeing the beginning of that trend. And so I know so far I'm kind of South heavy, but I have to go and I have to pick the University of Georgia.
Well, I'm staying on my trend of hitting the markets.
Okay.
Hitting the big markets. And with that tease, who do you think I'm taking?
I'm gonna let you go.
I'm taking the USC Trojans.
Okay, I like it.
LA market. We're going over to the west. Boom. I put them on I got to dot them up at the bottom southwest corner of my United States, so I'm spreading out really well. And, they just hit it all here. Excuse me. TV viewership, maybe a little bit lower than where I'm picking them here right now. But, they're AAU. They get that postseason appearances in. They've got the name, for crying out loud. They've got the city, the part of the country that you want to be in. So, again, viewership maybe a little bit lower than what I would like. But they hit everything else for me, so I'm getting them.
The TV networks are going to love you. You got that. You have the Midwest. You've got got Texas. The big Texas markets. You have the LA market, which Fox wanted to bring that in for the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So you're definitely pleasing the TV executives for sure.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I got to get the big deal.
Yeah. So I'm also I'm looking at markets and kind of just name brands and history. And I didn't actually expect to be able to take this team.
Okay.
So I'm actually going next with Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Again, obviously I'm a Penn State fan and a obvious Penn State homer. I admit that. However, I just think that brand, if you want to be in the East Coast markets, Washington, D.C., New York, that I-95 corridor, I think Penn State just has that area locked up. And is hugely valuable, and their ratings are high. Every metric you like, they're below those top echelon teams, but they're just like how they've been just outside the college football playoff. They're just outside of that group, but they're right there. So I love Penn State here as I think that's my 4th team.
4th pick.
Yeah.
Yep. So rounding out my top 5. Again, I'm going more region based than I thought, but I'm really happy to get this team. I just went southwest. Now I'm going southeast. I am taking the University of Florida. Give me the Gators.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Florida is, other than Texas, which you already got, and California, which you already got.
Yes.
The 3rd biggest state, huge TV markets. And they are that's the premier flagship university of the state of Florida. So you can't go wrong there. Totally understand that. And really that leaves me a kind of a dilemma because now I'm starting to move into my second tier of teams.
Yes, I am too.
Yeah. So
we literally just hit. So we've picked 9, and we've hit all my top 9.
There you go.
The 9 that we have picked were in my top 9.
So
Do you have anybody left over in your top 9?
Yes, I got a couple teams left over in my top 9.
I'm excited.
So, but here's what I'm going to do because I'm actually kind of getting out of balance of what I originally, what I thought I would end up.
Are you on tilt?
Not really on tilt, but I have to realign because of that geographic balance.
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and kind of counterpoint.
Okay.
I'm going to take Florida State.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they're just an up and coming, growing team. Yes, they are kind of seen as that second school in Florida, but we've talked about this. Florida is such a huge state; they have room for 2 flagship universities. Yeah. They have a huge fan base. Great year last year. Have a good history and tradition of success over the last few decades. Yeah. And I just see them as an upward trajectory. And I really want to get in that state of Florida. So I'm going with Florida State.
Fair enough. I know I have contingency plans for certain states.
Yes, yeah.
So I totally understand why you would have done that with Florida off the board, going for FSU there because there's certain areas you definitely want to get into. I totally understand where you're going with that. And I'm going to skip over my number 10 seed. I'm not going to go in order. I'm going to skip over them. And I have a couple teams here, Steve, I really want. It's a couple schools, I should say, teams. A couple schools here I really, really want. I'm struggling, but I think to go right along there with Texas, you got to take Oklahoma. So I'm going to pull Oklahoma in.
Yeah, they were actually my 9th team that I had already skipped over.
Okay.
So I totally understand it, and it makes the next decision a little easier for me.
Okay.
I'm going to go with LSU.
Yeah.
Just they're not maybe quite as big of a TV market as some other places, but the talent they have down there, the recruiting they can do, the fan base and how engaged that fan base is, and their donors, and the ratings they pull. I mean, they are a juggernaut, and it's a great addition. I'm kind of building like a new mini SEC with a couple other things, but they are just a juggernaut to me, so I have to go and add them, LSU, Louisiana State University,
for sure,
to my conference in the Super League.
And they would have been my next pick, I think. They were going to be my next pick. That's a great pick. I am spread out all over the country except for one area that I have to get into.
Okay.
And that is the wonderful Northwest. And, of course, when I say that, there's 2 teams, or 2 schools that everybody thinks of right off the bat. Which am I going to go with? I am going to go with the Huskies of the University of Washington. Join the JY Conference in our Super League.
Yeah, that's a really cool pick. They were down farther on my list, but I like that. I love getting into that Seattle market. It's it's a huge market. Hasn't necessarily traditionally been a huge college football market.
Yeah,
but great program, great school, and if you can add that Seattle market to your TV package, you're adding value to your potential TV contract. So
I may have stretched a little with Washington, but I hold them in high regard, so I stuck them in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of these teams, I think we're going to the top 5, 6, 7 teams were kind of obvious, and I think as we get into this middle, you can stretch and go either way in order to fit the needs that you're looking for.
Yeah, I had 3 teams here, depending on where I needed to go. And the other 2 teams, I'm already there.
Totally.
So that's why I could go and get the Huskies here.
Totally understand. So,
maybe that's not the right thing to do, but I'm trying to be an all-encompassing United States national conference / Super League.
Yeah, which I totally get, and we'll see how it turns out at the end. So far, I'm kind of going a little more regional. In that SEC talent hotbed with a couple other programs throw in there.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Clemson as my next pick.
Ooh.
They've had a lot of great success on the field the last 10 years or so. Maybe not the last 2 years, but in the decade previously, they're a big name program. Great ratings. They've been in the ACC where. Clemson, Wake Forest isn't necessarily getting the ratings, but when they play the big teams, the big programs, fantastic ratings. We saw some of those battles of Clemson and Alabama in the national championship games. Yeah. Many battles over the years with Florida State. So I think they go great in here. Great ratings. So Clemson is my pick.
I like it. That's an area that I would have liked to have gotten into, kind of that mid-Atlantic. I'm going to go back to Texas. I'm loading up here on the South, but I'm going Texas A&M. I know I already have the Longhorns, but they're just too high up on my list. I'd be reaching for some other schools, I think. I like A&M here. Another AAU school. I'm not sure if I'm all AAU, but I'm darn close. I'm taking Texas A&M right now.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, they're a classic, blue blood program. huge following. If you can lock down the state of Texas, it makes a lot of sense. You're kind of killing me there with that Texas market, but it is what it is.
Well, I'm anxious to see who your next pick is, because I know my next pick, but you might steal it from me.
Well, I think you may be surprised at this pick. Okay. I'm going with another traditional blue blood program that has a rabid fan base, that is in that kind of SEC footprint, that has some great traditional rivalries with some of those other SEC teams.
I don't think I like what you're saying, because I think it's the team I'm wanting.
Well, I'm going with Tennessee.
That's who I want.
Okay, yeah. I think they're a great program, coming back to prominence again, and just so many great matchups with the teams that I've already selected. Rivalries with Georgia, with Alabama.
You took my team, Steve.
Sorry, buddy.
Well, that's the part of the fun of this.
It is.
But that's
what you get for taking both Texas teams. Because if you
true.
would have taken Tennessee last pick, I would have taken Texas A&M, and but if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, the world would be a sweeter place.
But they're not.
Yeah.
I just said but. So I think I'm gonna go. I'm a little on tilt, and I'm gonna stay on tilt right now.
Okay.
I'm going back up.
Ooh.
I know this isn't gonna be where you're at, but I'm doing it. I'm going back up to the northwest, and I'm taking the Ducks. Quack, quack, quack. I know I got the Huskies up there, but I'm taking the Ducks up there as well. I got the two power schools in the Northwest.
Yeah.
You ain't getting anybody else.
That's actually where I was going next. So
good. I gave it right back to you.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. A huge brand. I mean, it's a Nike brand. Everybody knows the Ducks, Oregon, all their cool uniforms, all that stuff. So you know what? I think I'm going to have to go back to the well again. I guess I'm recreating the SEC. And, I love those traditional rivalries, those big games. To me, college football is all about the traditional rivalries. Yes. They create the big games, the big ratings. So I'm going with Auburn.
When you said going back to the well, I figured that's where you were going.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, the games with the rival. I mean, they have them playing against Alabama, Tennessee, LSU. I mean, just great games.
Well, and I wouldn't have picked them, but I do need to get into that Mid-Atlantic market.
Okay.
And I got two teams here that I'm really, really letting hang. I got them ranked pretty high, but they're not areas that I really want to be in anymore. I'm looking for, again, I'm spreading the wealth around, and I need the UNC, or I just said who I'm picking. UNC. I'm taking UNC because I need that Mid-Atlantic market. Probably not, probably getting some groans a little bit right now, a little further down on the attractiveness rating, but an AAU school, huge school, massive name, just like the Ducks. I just took the Ducks and UNC back to back. Yep. I mean, they just got that moxie about them, the colors and everything. And I know that's not the end all be all, but I mean, everybody knows the UNC blue. Yeah. Everybody knows it. So yeah, I'm happy. I need to get into that area, and I'm taking UNC.
So far, my conference is basically the SEC powers plus Notre Dame and Penn State. To me,
and you're the Big Ten guy,
exactly. So I need to get back into that Midwest. There's a lot of traditional rivalries of Notre Dame playing against Big Ten teams. One of the once you get past the Ohio State, the Michigan, the Penn State, one of the more consistent programs in the Big Ten, huge university, huge alumni base. The alumni from there move all around the country, live in all the great markets. I'm going with Wisconsin as my next pick.
That's a good pick.
Got to get in that Midwest.
I know. That would have been my next pick, Steve. I was hoping you were going with another Big Ten team in that general area. But you went with Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin. I just a power Midwest team to combine with my Notre Dame and my SEC picks and Penn State.
So I'm going to go with the it was the worst, again, Midwest, the worst offensive football team last season.
Yeah.
The good old Hawkeyes in Iowa, right in the middle of the country. Again, geography somewhat important here, but again, they're right around 20 for the attractiveness score, and we are sitting here right at the 20 mark. So I don't feel like I'm reaching with Iowa. They're not a team I would have been like, yeah, I want to draft them into my Super League. but they're hitting the marks that I need to hit right now. So I'm happy to take Iowa. I'll cross them off the list, and I'll pop them down on my map.
It makes a lot of sense. So I'm actually going to go with a team who has struggled on the field recently, but they're a historic program, tons of history as a blue blood program, lots of great rivalries with teams all over the country, which I think goes great with having Penn State, having Notre Dame. I am going with the University of Nebraska. It might be a big shock to you.
That is, I am. I don't say big shock, but yeah, there's definitely some teams I'd rather have.
Yeah, and I'm going with a big part of my theme. I am looking at the markets and the TV ratings, but also those traditional rivalries, because I really think that's what makes college football special. And I think when if we were to go to a 32, go to any kind of Super League, that's one thing that I think fans would crave is there's so much change do we have those historic rivalries that we really had? So that's a big reason for me adding Nebraska.
Okay. Well, I got Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, man, still two teams that I'm letting them hang up there. They were high on my list, but I'm just not interested in them right now at all. So I'm gonna. This one's good, not necessarily from a football. We're a football podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna look at this just from overall sports, what they have to offer me. And I'm going to go. I'm really hitting this West Coast. I'm going Stanford right now.
Okay.
I'm going to take Stanford into my Super League. And that hurts me a little bit because I just think they're so daggone cocky over there.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
But I'll still take them.
The tree.
Yeah.
So, I'm going, my next pick, you really have Texas locked down. However, I'm going to go with a school that, has some history, has both some history and some recent success.
Okay.
They're in that Dallas-Fort Worth market, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going with TCU.
I know you like that school, Steve. I am not surprised, maybe a little surprised at the location of where you're picking them. Not at all surprised that you're picking them, though. I know you've brought them up several times.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to go to a school that Steve, I love to pick. I love to follow. We've talked about them several times on our podcasts, and that's the good old Utes for Utah.
Does not surprise
They're
me.
joining my JY conference.
I'm surprised you waited this long.
Well, I was hoping you weren't going to steal them.
Yeah.
So I'm taking them.
Okay. All right. Makes a lot of sense. So I'm going back to the Midwestern well.
Okay.
You already took the two prime programs in the Midwest.
I know who you're taking. I think.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, again, with having Notre Dame, with having Penn State, with Wisconsin, you need some of those rival teams that have been playing each other for the last 50 years. Keep some of those rivalries going. I'm going with Michigan State.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I've got to be in the state of Michigan. I just have to.
I let them stick up there because I figured you'd take them eventually. I have them well up of where we're at right now. That was our 26th pick. I had them up around 15, Steve. But since I had Michigan, I just was like, I don't need Michigan State. So I'll let you take them at some point.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Sloppy seconds.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I never had them. So now I only have one team left dangling, and I don't want them either. So we're going to go down here. We're hovering around 30, Steve. We're at 26, so this is our 27th pick. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty. And as you said, as we got to the mid, now it's like, the differential here is minimal. So, I think, Steve, I took the double. I took the two schools out of Texas. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take the two schools out of Oklahoma.
Okay.
And I'm going to take Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
I did make myself a note. Don't take them if you have Oklahoma. But you know what? I'm taking them. So, OK State to the JY Conference.
Yeah, I was highly considering them. So, my next pick isn't necessarily a big state or a big market, but we talked about those kind of historic rivalries, those historic games, and also the fan bases that are just so into their teams. To me, if I'm building a team or a conference with all these other SEC teams, you got to have Ole Miss. Just a historic team, great place to. Well, I haven't been there, but from what I've heard, a great place to visit. They just have an awesome culture down there. They're really investing in their program and their team right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm going with Ole Miss with my next, and I love them matching up against those other SEC teams that I have. Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama and LSU.
For sure.
I think it's a great, and Auburn, just a great matchup.
I got to make sure I mark them down or I'll end up picking them.
Yeah.
That's a good pick. That's an area that I need to get into. And since you took Ole Miss, I am going to take Arkansas.
Okay.
So, again, a kind of an open spot on my map. It hits the mark. It hits right where I kind of had them. I had them at 32nd, so a little bit further out. Again, I'm leaving a couple teams. I'm just, at this point in the process, I'm not interested in. So I'm very happy taking the Razorbacks. I got to get some love down to Florida because I am a little bit Western and Texas, Oklahoma heavy.
Okay.
So I got to get a little love on the East Coast.
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
So anyway,
I'll tell you. So you said you just took Arkansas, right?
I took Arkansas.
Yeah. I went to the Outback Bowl a couple years ago and was very impressed by the Arkansas Razorbacks fans. They got this whole chant where they do like "Pig Suey,"
Nice.
and they all get up and do it.
I love it.
They're excited and pumped, and just I was really impressed with their fan base.
Okay.
So it makes a lot of sense. Here's the funny thing about my next pick. Okay. This is a team, this is a school where when we've talked about expansion, Big Ten, ACC, and where the SEC could be going, this is a team that I've consistently said I thought would be on the outside looking in.
Okay.
Was on the margins, was close.
Yeah.
But for when if we're just picking from scratch and we're starting, it's a historically good program. They haven't had as much success lately, but a great TV market. I'm going with the University of Miami Hurricanes, the U. You got to. I mean, they're just a great addition, I think, to this conference.
They were going to be my partner with Florida. They were going to be my last pick, my last in to partner up with Florida. And as you were talking, I went, I know exactly who Steve's picking. It's Miami, and that's a great pick right now. Yeah, totally. You took. I mean, I won't say you took my pick. There's other schools I can pick, but that's a good pick. And at this point, Steve, we're on our last picks. Is that correct? I think I have, unless I miscounted. We're at 16.
Be. Yeah, that
right?
could...
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This is my 16th pick.
Okay.
Final pick to make it for the second to last in the entire thing. And there's one, again, I still have him way up top, and I'm just not picking him because I don't want him. And so, the next one, if I was legit going right down my list, I don't want them either.
Okay.
And I can tell you who it is because you can pick whoever the heck you want. So the two I'm leaving out of this that are above 30 are two California teams. And I already got two California teams. So why do I want Cal and why do I want UCLA? I don't. I want Stanford and USC, and I got them both. So I don't give a crap about them.
I don't even have Cal on my top 40 rankings.
Okay, well, I had UCLA up pretty high, and they were my contingency on USC, so I don't care about them anymore. And then Cal was kind of there. So here's where I'm at. Here are the teams that I got on my list here from my last couple. It's Minnesota, Colorado, and Maryland. I'm going to pick one of those three.
Okay.
Minnesota, Colorado, and Maryland. And I'm gonna take Mini out of this just because I need more either East Coast or Rocky Mountain. I need somebody to be partnered there with Utah, so Colorado makes sense. I need somebody to be over with my UNC and my Florida, so Maryland makes sense. And then I look at it and I say, do I want Maryland or do I want Colorado? I love Colorado. I love going there, so I'm taking Colorado.
Totally understand. That pick makes a lot of sense, especially the interest that they've been getting lately. Deion Sanders being there, and they won a national championship in I think 90 or 91.
Yeah.
So I totally get that, especially with your geography that you're looking at, kind of a balanced national conference.
I'm trying.
Yeah. So my team that I'm going back to is one that you mentioned that you didn't want. I'm glad you didn't want them. For me, I have a good foothold in SEC territory. That belt of just talent and interest of the southeastern part of the country where football is just king and all these rivalries. I have some, I think, great national programs in Penn State and Notre Dame, and I got up into the Midwest.
Yep.
I got to be in LA. I got to be on the West Coast. I appreciate you leaving me again. You left me Michigan State so I can get into that state, and I'm going to go ahead and take UCLA. And again, there's a theme here. Earlier I took Nebraska.
Yeah.
There's a theme here of just the brands and the programs. Some of them maybe haven't had the success in the last few years, but if you're consolidating a super team, there's so much value in their name, in their brand, and the history they have, and the historic rivalries.
For sure.
And you put them in a super league where they're getting massive revenues coming in. They're on a level playing field. I couldn't pass up UCLA Bruins. I mean, to me, they're similar to like UNC, but on the West Coast. Just a great brand. Being in LA, I've got to add them, and I like my balance. I'm really focused in the southeastern part of the country. You have much more balance. Let's just, I mean,
if that's what you're going for, maybe you're not.
You have a national balance.
So.
I am really centered in that southeastern part of the country with some national historic brands around the country. That's kind of where I went.
Well, I'm going to ask our viewers a question.
Okay.
If I should have taken UCLA out of spite to keep them out of your conference. Because I look back and I think, but I didn't want them both in my conference. I don't want both USC and UCLA. I mean, I just didn't want them.
Yeah, so I think where you went was good. I mean, you got what you wanted.
So we were building a super league, which they should be in the super league. So if we're looking at this holistically, you took them and they're in, and they should be in. I wasn't taking them for stupid reason because I had USC and I was trying to build a better conference.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at the super league, they absolutely should be in. So yes, I agree. So I'm glad you took them because that would have been crazy if we didn't put them in our super league.
Exactly, and honestly, I was surprised at myself at putting Miami in, but it just made sense. And I would have been surprised if we didn't have UCLA in. So what I want to do is a little kind of fun little exercise here. Okay. I want us each to kind of criticize each other and just give me one pick that you thought was a stretch or that I surprised you or whatever, and I'm going to give you one pick of yours that I thought was either a stretch or surprised me. You want me to go first, or do you have something in mind?
If you know what you're going to say,
I know what I'm going to say.
All right.
I'm going to say Stanford, okay? I like your national balance and your West Coast and all that. I'll mention it for what you said. Football, I thought they were a little bit of a stretch. I did have them on my top 40 list. I had them at 39.
Okay.
So they weren't right within that 32. So that was probably my biggest stretch of what I thought. How about you?
Well, you didn't stretch past my list of 36.
Okay.
So I didn't have to dip down past my list of 36. So I won't go on who am I surprised that you picked, because none of these teams.
But maybe when
you picked them is more of what I'm trying to determine here. I will say I did feel you maybe were. Some of them were a bit of a stretch, but I get it. It was kind of in that like. Is it these 4 or 5 are kind of similar,
especially in the middle?
Yeah. So and it's tough for me here, Steve. It's tough for me.
Well, while you think about that.
They're there.
While you think about that, can I read like my next 5 or 6 of what my next 5 or 6?
I'll give you my. I know my answer. I think my answer is Auburn.
Okay.
I think to me, at least for my list, you took them a little bit early, but you gave at that point. You were saying I'm building the conference that has standing. What do you call it?
Just historic rivalries.
Historic rivalries.
Yes.
I couldn't think of the word rivalries.
Yes.
Historic rivalries. So the reasoning you took them when you did makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I think if I'm looking at my list and my numbers, you probably could have had them a pick or two later.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And honestly, I may not have even picked them at all if I didn't have Alabama and some of those other SEC teams to pair them with.
Understood.
Because they are kind of that second tier team in a state that's kind of small. I mean, they do have a rabid fan base, but I totally understand your point on that, and I really didn't know if you would pick them or where you would pick them.
Oh, they were on my list.
Yeah, once I had Alabama, I did want to get them. So, but
okay.
So I'm going to give you what my next, let's say 5 or so teams would have been.
I'll now let you know if I had them on my list.
Okay.
All right.
So my very next pick would have been, if we were going to like a 36 team instead of 32 team, my very next pick would have been North Carolina State.
No, they weren't on my list.
Okay. Well, I would have loved to have UNC. You picked them a little earlier than I was ready to pick them. I would have loved to have them. And so I had NC State as just outside as a backup plan, like you said, because I would love to have been in North Carolina.
Yeah.
My next one I actually had was Virginia Tech. I had them over the university, which is kind of funny. Again, this is different when we've talked about the Big Ten in real life scenario.
Yeah.
I've said I think Virginia is more likely to the Big Ten than Virginia Tech, but I think getting in the state of Virginia, Virginia Tech has a large, rabid fan base.
Yeah.
They had just a great atmosphere in their stadium and classic rivalries with some of these other teams. So NC State, Virginia Tech. I actually had in the next two teams. And I thought about going to the well to build a Pacific Northwest after you stole Washington and Oregon so early. I thought.
You thought they were early?
Well, they were a little earlier than I wanted them.
I think Washington was earlier than I needed.
I wanted them both, but you just took them maybe a little earlier than I was prepared to.
Okay. All right.
I considered at 33 and 34, I have Washington State and Oregon State.
Oh, wow.
Again, just because they're very interested fan bases, and I wanted to be up in that Pacific Northwest. It didn't work out. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And then I had some other teams like Louisville, West Virginia, South Carolina, Indiana, just on that outside group.
Yeah.
Outside looking in.
Yeah, my outsiders were Cal. I mentioned Cal. I didn't need them with Stanford and all. I just don't need them. Minnesota, I had on my list. They actually were 32nd on my list, so I had them right on possibly being picking. But you didn't even have them, and I mentioned Maryland. I had them on my list as well. So Maryland may be a little bit of a stretch. I like maybe a few of your teams slightly better than Maryland. Virginia Tech, UNC, or NC State. I get that. But when I got to my last couple picks, frankly, I was looking at filling my map to make sure it was much more national. Thus the reason for Arkansas. Not to knock them.
Yeah.
But the reason I would have taken an Arkansas and Colorado over a UCLA, although I would have taken UCLA far ahead of last pick if I didn't have USC. So that was the reasoning behind that.
And I really think between our two conferences, we really ended up with probably the best 32 teams or very close to it to make a Super League.
Yeah.
And I think it's just interesting how our different philosophies, because we didn't really compare notes before this.
No.
It was just hey, you pick 16, whatever. And where and so it kind of shows you what media companies and if they ever do build this, there's kind of two strategies to go. One, do you build that national coast to coast conference, or do you just rely on those old traditional? I did more of that, the old traditional rivalries that I think drive ratings, but maybe aren't in some of the best markets.
Yep.
And I think probably if they do go forward with something like this, they'll probably they want to have a good mix of both.
Yeah.
Traditional rivalries plus get in those big important markets.
Great point. Well, tell us which one you pick. I'll throw some slides up. Make sure you guys can see the Steve Conference, the JY Conference, and the 32-team Super League, at least for the Big Mountain Super League. This was a lot of fun, Steve. Thanks. With that, hey, we thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.
Hope you enjoyed the Big Mountain Super League draft.